There we are.
There you are, Mr. Kaufman. How is Friday Fun Day treating you today?
Uh, let's see. Woke up, had a really good workout this morning. Feeling good. Feeling pretty solid. No, how about you?
Well, it's not going poorly. Can I take it aside and maybe ask anybody that might be watching this now or at a later date that they could perhaps put in the comments for me? Have you ever experienced in your life where you just wake up one day and your tooth, a tooth, I believe it's a tooth, although it's kind of localized into an area, is just painfully hot and cold sensitive out of the blue, never
The winter,
before in
dude.
your life?
It's happened to me. It's the winter. I'm telling you, it's because of the dryness in your your furnace is running. It's the dryness. It happens to me almost every winter.
Really
Yep, and during, it does not happen any other time during the year.
Hmm,
Definitely.
interesting.
Yep.
Never happened to me before. And I mean, it friggin' hurt. I even went to the dentist. Like, I hate the dentist. Well, I don't go to the doctor, generally speaking, anyway, because they don't know more about my health than I do. But as an aside, like, that's how much it was bothering me. Like, I went to the dentist. So, who gave me no answers, by the way. Just, I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that's shocking.
I'm surprised it didn't have it the I'm surprised it didn't have the surgical answer for you. Honestly.
Well, they said they take the X-rays there, and they said, well, nothing looks cracked. Of course, maybe I cracked my tooth. You think you'd remember, like if you bit down on something and cracked your tooth, which nothing happened. But anyway, they said, well, you have to go see a specialist, an endodontist, where they have a special 3D imaging X-ray where they can see a crack like on the inside, which we can't necessarily see. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let it go a few more days and see if it still hurts.
Yeah, it's
So
only
that's where
only 10
we're
grand to have that done, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't yeah, the dentist is a whole nother issue. So sorry, as an aside, just welcome to the podcast, the creative real estate investing podcast for today. What's our topic for today, Mr. Kaufman?
Well, I love this. I love this topic, but we because there's so you can talk about this for so long. There's so much to talk about here. So we actually had to kind of chisel this down into some pretty basic um, core speaking points on this topic. We're going to talk about seller motivations a little bit today.
Okay.
Specifically, we're going to talk about we have kind of the psychology behind five different seller motivations that are very, very common that we see. That's probably, these are probably on the top of the list. But again, I mean, I don't expect that in an hour we can really get through. We can do a really good job of talking about the most obviously these glaring ones. But this topic, I mean, we have an entire course on. We actually have several. We have four different courses on different seller motivations and the reasons why these sellers kind of think the way they do and different ways to handle that stuff as well. But so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about seller motivations and the psychology behind why they would sell um, either at a discount or using some form of creative financing.
Excellent.
Yeah,
So so you're right in my wheelhouse here of some of our favorite acquisition
yeah,
strategies or reasons to acquire property at a discount too. And you're
yep,
right. We've kind of hit on some of this as we develop those marketing programs about how to acquire property. So yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's all right, let's roll it then. So item number one, let's talk about just um, we kind of call it personal and financial motivations, right? But financial distress,
Hmm.
right? And
Yep.
maybe you're facing foreclosure. Maybe you had a job loss and you can't pay the bills anymore. Actually, interestingly enough, as the Leviathan that we call our federal government starts to actually bring itself back down to reasonable sizes, that means some people are going to lose their job or have find employment elsewhere. So actually, that's a big thing facing some people, right, in the
Yeah.
next few months. Actually, so
Yeah. And even, I mean, if we're talking about the government anyway, you got to bring the military in, and really, one of the one of the largest sources or channels for creative deals. Believe it or not, if you live near a military base, um, a lot of these folks, and I just highly advise any service member I ever talked to about this, even my own daughter I talked to about this. She was in the Navy. I My advice to her was, don't ever buy a house when you get stationed at a new duty station. Don't ever buy a house, because man, you don't want to talk about. I mean, I don't know how many folks. I've bought several houses. We got Scott Air Force Base here, not far off. I mainly wholesale those houses because I don't really buy a ton of houses over there. Um, but yeah, I mean, as soon as someone gets assigned to a duty station, they're going to be potentially they're going to have to pick up and move. So and then they've got this house sitting back at the old duty station. A lot of them turn into you know unexpected landlords. That's a lot. That happens quite a bit. So I guess a little bit of a nugget there. If you guys are out there looking for motivated sellers that want to do creative deals, um, military bases are a very good source for that. But yeah, so what types of financial distress you mentioned, or maybe you didn't, but obviously foreclosures, pre-foreclosures. From my point of view, I've always said that we had an abundance when I first started getting into this business. We had an abundance of we had just a massive inventory of pre-foreclosures. We were coming off the back end of that whole 2008 mess and everything like that. And well, I wasn't in there. I wasn't in this business 2008, but there was still that whole trickle down effect when I did finally get into this business in 2015. But so we still had a decent sized inventory of pre-foreclosures. And today, that inventory is really, I call it inventory, but the availability of pre-foreclosure deals. That's what I'm talking about. That number has really dwindled. I mean, it's although it's still a really hot item, or a hot what do I want to say here, Ken? It's a really a good target.
hot niche.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can we pause on that just for a
Yep.
second though, and let's make sure we understand how pre-foreclosures get manipulated, right? So when everything melted down in 08, 09, 10, all around there. So there are still a lot of loans that are in arrears right now. But what happens is the bank allows the arrears to go on for longer, and they allow and they don't report things like they used to. So delinquent notes and delinquent mortgages is still probably about the same levels that they've been for many years. But our access, as you mentioned, the availability being the key, but as an investor, our access to them has been manipulated by the banks. They don't put them out there like they used to.
That is true. Yeah.
Right? Because the government doesn't want all this bad debt. Well, the banks don't want it on their sheets either, but the government doesn't want to report it, right? And I know everyone's shocked about how the government's not being honest and open. Wow, shocker, right? So that's some, but you're right. There's still pre-foreclosures out there. There's still great deals, right? This deal we did, the sub two flip was a pre-foreclosure.
Yep.
Right. And just remember, right? So one of the big things here is that the sellers are just really distressed. But as you like to say, I'm going to steal this line from you, right? They put their head in the sand. So true. Like they don't do anything about it until the last minute. In other words, their house is going to be sold on the auction steps this Thursday, and they contact you, Mr. Kaufman, the Friday before the Thursday.
Not even. Well, I take that back. On this particular one,
Not even, right?
this particular one, I actually did.
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, I talked to her on the Friday. I talked to this seller on the Friday before the following Thursday when it was going to be sold. She went dark. Like she went out and partied or something the whole weekend. I didn't hear from her again until Tuesday. So I had less than 48 hours to get this thing done. And that's very typical. I mean, that's what I see. In fact, I tell all of our, I'm calling them partners now. All of our partners, I tell them, like, if you have a hot pre-foreclosure lead, you just need to drop everything that you're doing and get it done, because it will consume. If you miss one little thing, you're going to miss out on that deal. So, but yeah, I mean, it just brings there's such hot leads because there is just a tremendous amount of anxiety and stress, and to the point where, like, just like what you're saying, they tend to bury their heads in the sand, and it's like it comes down to that point where they've got to do something, or they've got to figure something out, and that's usually when you get the phone call. So another one of those another fear for them, I guess, is would be talking about credit. How is it going to affect their credit? And that's actually a very good selling point for investors is, hey, in fact, that's kind of what we do is we say, hey, I can come in here, I can buy this thing subject to, I don't really say subject to, but we'll start making payments on your mortgage. We're going to take legal title to it, and we're just going to pay on your mortgage for a while. And we're actually going to help you kind of like the dings to your credit are already on your credit report.
Yep.
But what we're going to do is we're going to help reestablish your credit profile.
Yep.
And we're going to try and make payments for you. And if that entails us making payments for 5 years, then so be it. But at the very least, if like this one we're doing a flip right now. I would tell most sellers that, if they don't want if they don't want to do the subject to deal and have you making payments for that long, you say, okay, well, obviously in your mind, that's got to be a flip. It's got to be something you either refinance quickly or you get in there, fix it up and sell it. And, I tend to not put those promises in paper just because it's real estate can be unpredictable. And so I'll just tell them, like, hey, I can, generally speaking, if it's going to be a flip, I say, I can probably have this done inside 90 days. I'll try my best to get it done inside 90 days anyway. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But the whole point is try and alleviate that, that anxiety that they have about their credit and their ability to use credit in the future. It's another reason why I don't care for short sales all that much.
Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, I'll tell you, I know some people that make good money in short sales.
Yeah.
But man, I think I would rather, I don't know.
Take a hot poker and put it in your eye.
I think I'd rather slide down a guide wire made of razor wire. I think I just,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's
so much easier. Although, short sales are making a bit of a comeback. Interestingly enough,
they are.
But don't you think a bank would be much more willing to talk to you when you say, "Hey, I'm going to get those arrears fixed up for you," right? Instead of, "I'm going to short you 50 grand on your principal."
Yeah.
Right. They're a lot more willing to do that. I mean, obviously, you don't necessarily need to tell the bank you're taking it subject to, but hey, I'm gonna start making these payments, and we're gonna get the arrears taken care of for you. What are those numbers?
Yep.
Like,
they want it in the black.
We're more than happy to tell you.
Yep. They want it on the positive side,
Yep.
and the performing side in that ledger. So that's really what matters to them.
Yeah.
So we've talked, let's see, financial distress, pre-foreclosures, job loss. Obviously, job loss is going to be a big one. In
Yep.
fact, a lot of the reasons that people go into pre-foreclosures is because they have had a job loss.
Yeah, it's all related.
Yeah. But and
The
then we have like something like possibly, I don't know, someone who's making 2 mortgage payments. I actually had a house, the second deal I ever did, I bought from a guy who was had purchased another house. Probably wasn't the smartest idea for him to do that because he couldn't afford the other house, but he had excellent credit, and he bought the other house. And in fact, when he gave me this house, and I do mean gave, he gave it to me. I didn't put any earnest money down or anything. He literally gave me the deed to this house. He had just refinanced that house because it was his old house. I guess, he had moved on to his new house. He had this old one there. He had just refinanced it so that he didn't have to make another payment for 45 days. I mean, he was
was ready to go.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but that's exactly what happened. So then I'm just going to move on. I think we've got the idea about financial distress.
Can I just say one thing
yeah.
about actually? So you're sitting across the table from the seller, right? Who's in a financially distressed situation for whatever reason, not making their payments, all that stuff too. Treat them appropriately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I maybe we don't agree with whatever the reason was as to, like, they could have got themselves out of whatever. It doesn't matter. They're in the situation they are at the moment you're talking to them, and treat them like they're your own mother or father. Try to fix the problem. We're here to solve a problem for them, not make them feel worse about their situation.
Yeah. I like to say that be empathetic, but also be also understand that you've got to deliver certain hard truths, brutal truths. I guess
Yes.
you have to be you have to have that sort of that balance of being kind of a leader in that particular situation, but also being empathetic to what's going on in their lives. So, but yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point. A lot of times we get wrapped up in the deal, and we don't really think about the human behind it. Which brings me to another point, another talking point, or another type of seller. And I love these because they're actually, most of them are maybe not what you would call, quote, smart, but they are more educated about the investment side than probably your average homeowner is, and that's tired landlords.
Yeah.
Particularly, another golden nugget here, particularly landlords that don't hold a ton of real estate. So why would you target that particular demographic? And the reason is because most property management companies are not going to take on these little, 1 or 2 properties. Most of them won't. Some of them will. You might find some out there, but I wouldn't expect for them to perform on those very well, if I'm being honest. So these landlords with 1 or 2, maybe up to 5 properties, are having to manage these things themselves. And you're not quitting your job with 5 properties. So chances are they have a job, and then they're trying to manage all of these tenants, toilets, and trash, right? They're trying to manage all that stuff. Yep. In addition to having having to go out and earn money some other way. So it's a very, very good demographic to target. And I don't know. I have yet to find a property management. I'm sure they're out there. I'm not dogging all these property management companies, but I have yet to find one that actually. I take that back. I mean, let me. What's that? Yeah. I will say that the property management company that manages our apartments, they are pretty on top of everything. But it's a small town, and they they don't have the numbers that a lot of these property management companies in these larger cities might have, and so they are really, really good. But for the most part, man, it's almost better, unless you have like, I don't know, 40 and up doors, 40 doors and up. It's almost better just to manage them yourself, or bring management in house so that you can control it. Nothing will wear you out faster than trying to manage other people who are trying to manage what you could be managing better yourself. You know,
my wife and I this morning were just vociferously discussing the keeping track of all the different goings from a tax perspective, just getting the taxes ready for 2024, keeping track of all the different things for that too. Not to mention when you get 30 or 40 doors, right? Yeah, that can become pretty cumbersome.
Yeah.
But yeah, property managers, just generally speaking, suck, right? They don't do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. 9 times out of 10. Yet there are good ones out there. Totally get it. There are good ones out there, but generally speaking, you're going to be irritated. So, right, acquiring good properties from distressed landlords, great tactic. And what about those what about those landlords that have held the property for a long time? Remember, from a tax perspective, you get depreciation. That's 27 and a half years. Well, unless it's commercial grade, but you have 10 single are all rentals, right? So you have 20 and a half years of depreciation on them. And say you've owned it for 15 or 20. Well, you're not getting much in the way of time to, here's what I like to say, convert them from a landlord to a note lord and see if you can get seller financing from them. Maybe you take over the existing debt and then they carry back. Maybe you just do a wrap over the top of it, right? Something like that. But change.
You're definitely hitting on.
Yeah.
Right. You're hitting on that. What I was kind of a roundabout way of saying in the beginning is that they're smarter. They're much smarter than your average, than just a homeowner who has no experience with rentals whatsoever. And so, gosh, man, if I had to put on I can't even begin to tell you how many of those deals I've done. I mean, it can come back to, there can be negative sides to that. They are a little bit smarter. They do understand. So a lot of them will try and squeeze more out of the deal than maybe the property is worth, and you end up walking away from a deal. But for the most part, they're very understanding. That, for instance, that commercial deal we did down there in High Ridge. I mean, that was a perfect example of someone who just did not want to deal with this commercial property any longer. And she had owned it. She had a loan on it. She turned around and seller financed it to us, and it turned out to be a decent little deal.
Yeah.
So
100% profit in 6 months. And this is say from a creative perspective too, that was a wrap on top of a wrap.
Yeah. Yep.
So yes, we can do that. That was you're right. That was a commercial mixed use property. So we need more of those. Where are those? Hey, put your commercial mixed use stuff in the comments below, and we'll figure it out for you. So
yeah.
All right. Moving on, we got item 3 here. How about inherited properties, more commonly known as the probate properties?
Well, now let's talk about that.
Well, I guess it doesn't have to be probate necessarily.
Yeah, they are two different things. Yeah, it depends. Well, as you know, not all properties go through probate. The ones that are actually, the people that have actually done their homework and done some estate planning, they're gonna have the properties in a trust, and so, or they'll have everything. They'll have a beneficiary's deed or something in place where, if they pass away, the deed automatically transfers to someone else. And but the property still in that case does need to go through probate. It just needs or does it?
A beneficiary's deed does not go through probate.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
At least not here in Missouri. I don't know if that's true in every state, but at least here in Missouri, it does not go through probate.
Yeah. Well, so they are different. So keep this in mind. that if you are out there and you're pulling probates, understand you're only getting
Mm.
a fraction of those deals that are being that you're marketing to. There's a large portion of people. I know I have a living trust. All my
Mm.
property is in a living trust. I know you do as well.
Oh yeah.
And so our when we pass away, our properties are never going to show up in probate.
Nope.
So yeah, keep that in mind when you're out there setting up your marketing and everything. I don't know. There's a lot of list providers out there that they have this little button or this little toggle where you can choose whether or not you want to include properties with properties that are in a trust. And a lot of people don't toggle that on. A lot of people leave that off there. You can 100%. I mean, 9 times out of 10, the mailing address of a property that's in a trust is the correct mailing address anyway. So why not just send them some mail, or however you're going to dare I say cold call. But however you're gonna market to them, do not exclude the properties that are in trusts.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. I know I did that a lot when I first got started. I was like, what's a trust? First of all,
Yeah. Well, there you go. Right. It's like, what the hell is? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
And then the more I read about it, the more confused I got. I was like, well, what's a trust? And then, okay, well, if somebody else can be the trustee, how do I know I'm sending mail to the correct? Just send the mail. Just be done with it. Send the mail, and you'll be successful with it.
Yeah, you should have seen. Sorry. Can we digress for a moment? Like we talk about trust a lot. Because I love me some trust, but you should have seen the look on my face. Like the first time I'm sitting in a class, like I don't even remember who the instructor was too, but I remember like the look on my face. Like I turned and looked at my wife who was there too. I was like, did you just hear that about the trust? Like, what the hell? Like it was just this magical light bulb that went on with the trust. It's just like,
Yeah.
when you go down the rabbit hole and get good with them, like,
Oh man, I'm a visual person.
do anything different. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very, very, very visual learner. You probably get sick of that because I'll say, you'll come up with a concept or you'll be talking about something, and you'll see me. I'm sure you can see it in my face. I'm like, this isn't. I need to, and then I'll just say, hey, I got to put this in a mind map or something. I can't picture it. And that's exactly what I did with the trust. Like once I finally started learning these different, the different players in a trust and all the different, how it all goes down and who holds title in a trust and all this stuff. Once I finally was able to get it in front of me, it was like, oh man, this is genius. This has been going on for hundreds of years. Like,
yeah, right.
You've got to be
now finding out. It's just
right.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I was robbed. Like I got a terrible education, but yeah, trusts are fantastic tools.
Yeah, trusts are the legal model of how you can protect yourself. There, yeah, it's good stuff in there too. But yeah, you're totally right though. So we talk a lot in our marketing courses too. We specifically talk about probate and things like that. But you're right. You don't necessarily want to exclude those properties that are in a trust and not go through probate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the probate list is, it's. I don't want to say that it's like the pre-foreclosures where it's hammered, but it's a very common. I'm always the type of person, like I tend to say, like, when the mob is going right, I like to go left, like, because they're leaving things on the table, and in this case the mob is generally building a probate list, and they're forgetting all about these other properties. So but yeah, as we're talking about inherited properties and probates, what are some of the motivations behind those folks selling? I mean, it seems very obvious, but like if you really put yourself in their position, it's very obvious, very plain to see that they don't have, generally speaking, they don't have a lot going for them in these situations. I mean, a lot of people, because most of the time, let's be, I'll try and be as least morbid as possible. but death is unexpected in most cases. And
Yeah.
so now they potentially have this property on their hands that, maybe their parents have lived in for decades, that's never been updated, or, it's maybe their parents have refinanced it. And now they've got another, or maybe it's still got a mortgage on it. And now they've got another payment that they need to make if they want to sell it. I mean, there's tons of motivation behind inherited and probate properties. So,
Yep.
and by the way, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And sometimes you just need to educate the people about, hey, I can make you, right? I mean, I can send you payments on this. You hold a note for me, I'll send you payments on this, and you can be the bank.
Yep.
You do nothing. Like,
Yep.
you're totally hands off and scot free. Sometimes you just have to educate the people about that, especially if it's an out-of-state person. And sometimes, man, they just want to liquidate. That's okay too. You can, you can go out and get you your rehab loan money, and there you go. I mean, it's still going to be a good deal. So,
yeah, and as far as we talk about risk, we talk about assessing and mitigating risk. This is going to sound maybe a little bit crude. The only way I know how to say it is, if you bought, I like inherited properties. I like probate properties, probably the best of all, as far as risk is concerned, because, again, I'm going to sound morbid, but these properties, if something were to happen to you, let's say that, I don't know, you got injured or something, you became disabled, or, I know it sounds so morbid, but let's say that something like that happened to you, or, you've purchased one of these properties, and all of a sudden you find yourself on the losing end of a tragic accident, and you're no longer making payments on that property. If you picked it up subject to, there's no one there there's no one left to, how do I want to say that, Ken, without sounding I'm kind of at a loss for words. No one else is there to be hurt financially there. Let's put it that way. So for that reason, these become very subject to deals already non-recourse in nature. This just solidifies that non-recourse nature, that, hey, if you happen to not be able to make those payments sometime down the future, which you should be making your payments, but if for some reason you physically can't do it anymore, no one's really going to get hurt. The bank's going to take the property back, they're going to resell it, and everybody may be made whole.
Yeah.
Did I explain? I know that doesn't.
Well, I
think comfortable talking about that, but yeah.
I think that's a good point. But let's maybe clarify that. So there's a mortgage on a property, and let's say that it was in the husband and wife's name, right? So there's two people on the loans, and let's say that the husband passed away a few years ago. So now the only obligated person is the wife. Okay. Then she passes away. Well, the loans do not get, mortgages, deeds of trust do not get transferred to the heirs. Only the people that sign that note are responsible for that note. It does not get transferred. So, like what Jeff was saying is, if payments are stopped, then the bank just has to take it back. I mean, there's no credit hit. There's nobody to take a credit hit. They're deceased. So those are great. Like you said, those are great subject to deals from our perspective, because it mitigates as you mentioned, it mitigates our risk. If something goes belly up and you can't, you have to get out of the deal, right?
Very eloquently spoken.
Never our intention, though.
Pause and trying to spit this out and make it sound a little bit better than it actually is. Yeah. But yeah, that's absolutely right.
The bank would love for you to assume the loan at that point, right? Because otherwise they're left high and dry. I mean, they still have the property as their recourse, obviously, but I mean, they would love the payments to continue, right? Yeah. So that's those are good ones. Yeah, you were correct.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite category. Favorite category of property to buy is just for the risk management side of that.
Now, how about the next one? So we're talking about life change. Usually, the biggest life change is a divorce, right? So
Yep.
divorce. And I will just say, for the record, for a while, I was like the divorce, needing a fresh start, landlord guru guy out in the properties, the properties we have out here in Washington. This is like every single time I was turning it over, it was a divorce situation, divorce situation, divorce situation.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I just like to note for the record, of course, their credit was always shot to shit, right? I mean, that's typically the case. Like, especially if it's a nasty divorce, everybody tries to screw everybody, and they they run up all this debt, and it's in everybody's names, and blah blah blah, and your credit goes to hell. Man, I never once was a payment missed from all that. Now, of course, you got to make them co-sign or something. But anyway, I digress. So divorces are good. Can be profitable situations. I don't like to get in the middle of that though so much, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about their family home here, typically that's being ordered to be sold by the court,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just like it's hard to get in the middle of it. But I know you've successfully done some divorce deals.
Yeah. The thing about divorce is it's a highly volatile, or it can be. Most of the time it is. Let's put it that way. It is usually a highly volatile situation that you somehow have to manage. You have to bring those people, because particularly if both of their names are on either the note or both of their names are on the deed of trust, which, by the way, that's not mutually exclusive. They don't, you can have someone that owns the property with, in fact, by decree, by the very fact that you're married, you have an equitable interest in a property. And so, in a lot of situations, you have to bring these people together because both of them have interest in it. Yet they're at each other's necks. It is a very, very, it can be rather a very tough situation. And man, I'm telling you, I have seen the craziest. This is why I always tell people this is probably my least favorite group of folks to as far as marketing goes, to target. Just for that just for the reasons that I'm telling you, it is extremely volatile. I've said it many times that I would tell this story for anyone who asked, but I have one of the properties that I purchased. This guy, in fact, it was the same guy. Sorry, it was the same guy that I was talking about earlier, who had 2 mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
He had just gone through a divorce, and this is going to sound crazy, but this guy actually hired someone to off his ex-wife. And I mean, right in the middle of when I was trying to buy this whole thing.
Oh, geez.
All right. So listen to the motivation behind this guy. I'm going to give you just a kind of a really brief rundown. Started off, he got a divorce. Then he bought another house, right? That he couldn't afford he couldn't afford 2 payments.
Right.
I didn't know what other than not being able to afford his 2 payments. And also at that time, that's when I bought the house, was when he had the 2 payments, or I say bought, he gave it to me. 6 months down the road, I get a subpoena from a bankruptcy attorney that he had filed for bankruptcy and listed this property that I bought subject to in the bankruptcy. I mean, it's just like, but the divorce part of that was so bad. Their relationship was so bad. They were not speaking to each other at all. And I somehow had to, it was such a good deal that I somehow had to piece this together. I had to be the intermediary, the peacemaker in all of this.
Yeah.
And, he gave me his ex-wife's phone number. I tried calling her. She was ignoring me. I'm not real proud of this, but I did this. This is how important it was to get this deal done. He told me where she lived. So I went to her house, and as I pull up and I park kind of, down the street a little bit. I didn't want to freak anybody out. And also didn't, I guess for my safety, I didn't want to provoke anybody. But finally, I was so nervous. I saw her actually walk out of the house, and she was smoking a cigarette in the garage. And I just walked up, kind of like with my hands visible. I was like, "Hey, I've left you a couple messages, and I've been trying to get a hold of you. I'm trying to get this house closed. Get this completely off of your plate. I would like to get this thing done by next, I don't know, next Thursday or Friday or something like that." And she was super sweet. She was great. She just didn't want to have to deal with him. And so anything that had his name attached to it, she did not want to deal with it. And man, and then that's when she told me the story about which he didn't tell me prior to this. When he told me the story.
He omitted that in the
Yeah,
jail.
he didn't tell me he was on the run basically for hiring a hitman. Yeah, I mean, it was wild, dude. It was wild, crazy stuff.
Yeah, but anything that you could say, and just like, you're going to help her dissociate from him, like she's all for it.
Yeah.
Right? Or vice versa. That's good. Now, I will say this though. Would you agree that as a general statement, getting a divorce property is more like you need to do a cash deal? It's not really great for subject to, because they don't want to have anything, their names on anything together with each other. I mean, you could quit claim things, I guess, and do it that way too. But generally speaking, right, they're not really ripe for sub 2 creative stuff.
I don't know. I think this all comes down to transparency. As long as that's why I love subject to so much, because you have to be transparent with this stuff. And some of them do, some of them don't. I'd say it's 50-50, man. It's a surprising number of people who will actually agree to those terms. It's very surprising. And by the way, speaking of the creative side, if you're going to buy a subject to deal in these situations, I would adhere to the promises that you make, because
oh God, yes,
my gosh, these folks are in fact, I kind of actually, you know what, we are actually involved in a deal, one over on the other side of the river, where the wife, the divorcee, one of the divorcees, the wife contacted me, and she's like, "Well, when is this thing going to be out of my name?"
Yeah.
Well, we actually picked that deal up from someone else who was not
following through.
Well, they weren't following through, and they weren't transparent about how this actually worked.
Yeah.
And so I think we managed to smooth that over pretty well. And I think once she realized the benefit, because she actually was on the loan, and so I think once we finally explained to her, how this was going to help her, she was okay with it. But it just, I don't think the individual actually, was really just. You got to be over the top with them. You got to be just so transparent, and so, you understand that this is going to be in your name for a while. I mean, you have to literally say that stuff. And I'm not sure that she was really, either she wasn't very receptive of it and just wanted to be done with that divorce situation, or, or if it was actually explained to her. So,
yeah.
Very, very tricky situations, man.
And when you bring that up, the other side of that, the husband wanted to buy another property, and wanted this one paid off. So he was like, "Yeah, no, that's not the agreement." But again, what do we do? Because we like to solve problems. We sent him a nice letter saying that we have assumed the obligation of those monthly payments and have been doing so for X amount of time. So please consider that upon qualifying him for your mortgage guidelines, blah, 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 too.
Yep.
And I assume that we didn't hear anything else about it. I assume that worked, or maybe he didn't end up going through with it. I don't know, but
yeah, because that was kind of an experiment for us. I'd read a lot of the Fannie. I'm going to get down the rabbit hole here a little bit, but a lot of the Fannie guidelines on on debt obligations and debt paid by others is how they phrase it in the Fannie guidelines. And so we just thought, hey, well, let's just create an affidavit saying that we're responsible for making the payments. And sure enough, that has worked for me. That's worked for me several times. And this is, if I've lost you, what we're talking about is these folks want to go out and buy another property after they've sold the property to us subject to. So we've just we started using this. We created an affidavit to meet that, check that box for the new lender, for our seller's new lender on their new property, and it's worked out really, really well. In fact, I just had a guy on a 4-family that I own down in the city. He called me up, same thing. He was trying to refinance his personal residence. And by the way, this guy was not in any kind of financial distress at all. He was a tired landlord, but he sold the property to me subject to. And he's trying to refinance his personal residence. And I sent him an affidavit, a signed and notarized affidavit. And he was able to refinance his personal residence. So, yep, all kinds of good little tricks.
Yeah, but I would just like to go back, like we say all the time, though, you have to have integrity to that. Don't give them that document, like, or don't enter into those agreements if you're not serious about it.
Yep,
like,
for sure.
We're serious about making the payments when we take on that obligation, or we wouldn't do it in the first place.
Yep.
So
yeah, that one I've been making those payments for 4 years now. So I mean, he knew I was going to help
yeah,
out.
and that's such a long length of time too. I'm sure the lender probably just disqualified all that off as, or took it all off its debt to income ratio. So yeah,
I don't know if they're able to take it all off of there or not. I really didn't follow
I think it's up to the lender. You know what I mean?
Is it? Yeah, I thought I know that Fannie says 75%. I don't know if he had a private, like a portfolio loan or what have you, where they might reconsider that, but don't really know. I didn't follow up with him about it. So
yeah.
Well, let's jump to number 5 here.
Yeah, the last item. Yeah.
This is your lane. This is this is all you.
This one. So this is about. So we talked a lot about trust and probate and planning things. So a lot of individuals, or let's say we have landlords and they have 30, 40, 50, 60 doors, or whatever the case may be, right? And they want to get out of that racket. Well, they don't want the tax implication of selling a $3.5 million portfolio, right? They don't want capital gains on that. So this is where we can come in, right? And it doesn't have to be that big, but just for sake of easy numbers, right? We could come in and say, well, why don't you just finance that to us, right? We'll take over the existing commercial loan. We can wrap it. We can do whatever, right? Take a second back, whatever that is. And then you take your payments over time so you don't get bent over by the IRS.
Yeah.
Right. And they already understand things like that because they're already in the game. You know what I mean? You don't really have to sell it to them. In fact, they may want to do that up front. Right. We were I say we were close to 165 deal transaction over across the river, and that's the exact motivation of that seller. I don't want all this money up front.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I mean, another thing to consider with that is, if a seller sells their property, or in that case, is 165 doors, you can. Part of that strategy could be, if he sells 165 doors, he's gonna be loaded up on cash, tons of cash, right? Generally speaking, probably.
Yeah, most likely.
So now he's got to, in order to avoid the tax on that, he's got to 1031 all of that cash into something else.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't have something lined up for where for somewhere to put that cash, he's going to be taxed on it. Period. And one thing to think about is, by deferring that capital gain, or those capital gains taxes, does not mean that you can't pay him off when he does finally find something to put that cash into. Maybe you refinance the portfolio, or you refinance the property. So you're just deferring that tax, and you're giving your seller time to go out and find something that they can actually 1031 into.
Yep.
So that would have been, actually, that deal's still on the table. I'm still kind of hasn't.
To revisit that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
probably time to revisit that since we're a little more savvy now too.
yeah,
So yeah, that's
yeah. But so yeah, taxes. I guess number 5, the bullet point, the 5th one is tax and financial strategies. That would be,
yeah.
and that's really in our world, as far as it relates to, uh, as far as it relates to taxes. That for on the creative side, for me, that is the number one bullet point, the number one selling point to picking up deals creative is avoiding those capital gains. Of course,
Yeah.
if it's a single family home, they're not going to have those capital gains more than likely, unless it's over. Was it 600,000 now?
Yeah, you mean if it was your personal residence
Or
too, the
primary
house?
residence? Yeah,
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 perfect,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and man, you can really get creative sometimes with these guys too. Let's just take it in aside because where you get hit with the tax gain is not only do you get the cash up front, but it's the cost basis increase. So
yeah,
you bought it at $100,000, but you're selling at 200,000. It's that $100,000 difference that the IRS is getting you on. So in order not to have all that cost basis on paper, like maybe you enter into your financial agreements and promissory notes inside the LLC
yep,
that owns them, or inside the trust, or you can create a trust that umbrellas over that, and then you can do your work, right? You can do the work with the notes and the agreements inside the trust, inside the LLCs
that's right.
that are in there too. So
Yep.
that's yeah,
Same thing with depreciation.
little advanced strategy. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I mean, especially these folks that have taken accelerated depreciation. I mean, there is something called depreciation recapture that a lot of people do not take into account when they sell a property.
yep.
And if you can sell a property creatively, uh, well, let me say this: you're not selling the property. Maybe you're selling a position in the entity that the property
Yes.
owns. You
Right.
can take that. That accelerated depreciation is no longer an issue, right? So, and we're not going to get into what all that acceleration depreciation is. Nothing more than what it sounds like. They take an advanced, or they take advances on the depreciation and write it off on their tax returns. So I don't even know what those rates look like. I know regular depreciation is 27.5 years. I think I've seen people drop it down to like 16, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you can almost cut it in half. But
Yeah.
I don't do that because guess what? Right? Accelerated depreciation also means accelerated recapture depreciation
Right.
when
Yep.
you sell it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's like I don't bother to do that. So
Yep. And they're going to get their money back for sure. I mean, there's no way around it. So, yeah, I mean, I know we were kind of all over the place with this one, but
no, it's good stuff. Well, we
yeah,
just hit some primary areas of motivations that seller has that we can get good creative deals with. A lot of times, good creative deals, right? Which is what we're here for, especially that sub two stuff.
yeah,
And just toss up on there again too. This is just happens to be one of the marketing courses. This is just like the place to start, right? Fast track lead gen. But go and check out the other courses. Like we have separated the courses into basically the same thing, personal financial motivations, family motivations, the divorce, all those sorts of things. We kind of outline that of the different seller motivations, man. A lot of good stuff in there. We probably
yep,
don't like sell that stuff. Like we don't announce that stuff too, but man, there's a lot of good stuff. We got a lot of good stuff sitting out there, man. You just gotta go check it out.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, guys, I hope this helped. I mean, the whole idea behind this podcast was to try and get you get you to be, I guess, empathetic, or get you into the mindset of what a seller might be going through at any particular time. And the reason that you do this, in fact, I'm going to be really ruthless with this. We do have one out there. It's called Mindset: The Foundation of Success. It's a course we created. It's all about getting your mind right. But I thought I'd bring that up since we're trying to get into the seller's minds here and understand that what their needs look like. This ultimately is going to help you craft an offer to them that that hits on all of those points, that helps you create and write an offer that um, satisfies, I guess, all
Solves
of
their problem.
100%,
Yeah,
satisfies all
solves
of
their
their
problem.
needs, or
Yeah,
the biggest
absolutely.
part of their needs. There's some things that you're not going to get around, but it is very, very, very important for you to not just think about the numbers. Think about the things that the intangibles that folks go through, and the problems that you're able to solve for them that will translate into numbers later down the road.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. You got anything else you want to add?
Nope, I think that'll wrap us up for this week. Just have today's Valentine's Day too, I guess. So have a great Valentine's Day and a great weekend, and we'll be back at it next Friday, right?
Yep.